It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. A child dies after a bus carrying dozens of school children in Somerset overturns and falls 20 feet down an embankment. Calls for an inquiry after it emerges the identities of MI6 and SAS members were exposed in the Afghan data leak. The MP Diane Abbott is suspended by Labour as the Prime Minister defends his purge of his party.
We had to deal with people who repeatedly break the whip because everyone was elected as a Labour MP on the manifesto of change, and everybody needs to deliver as a Labour government.
Also on the programme tonight, 16-year-olds are to be given the right to vote at the next general election. Plus, the Lionesses cling on at the Euros, taking England's quarter-final against Sweden into extra time. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello, good evening. We begin with breaking news tonight, and police say a child has died after a bus carrying school children overturned and slid 20 feet down an embankment in Somerset. 21 people were injured, including 2 children who were seriously hurt. Dozens of children and adults were on board the bus, making its way back to Minehead Middle School after a day trip.
We can confirm tonight that one child has sadly died. A formal identification process will need to be carried out, but our thoughts and sympathies are with their family, who we're in contact with at this time, and specially trained officers are with them to provide support. A number of other people have presented or been taken to hospital, some with serious injuries. This includes 2 children who were taken to hospital by air ambulance.
Well, Sky's Dan Whitehead joins us now from the headquarters of Avon and Somerset Police. And Dan, a truly horrendous incident so near the end of term, and a very challenging scene we learnt tonight for the emergency services.
Yeah, absolutely heartbreaking what has unfolded in the area this afternoon. 60 firefighters attended the scene, and they described it as incredibly difficult and very complex. They had to start to try to cut free some of those children who were trapped on that coach just before 3 o'clock this afternoon. 21 children taken to hospital, and the confirmation we just heard that very sadly one of those children died at the scene. There has been reaction this evening from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. He wrote a heartbreaking update on the school bus crash in Somerset. There are no adequate words to acknowledge the death of a child. All my thoughts are with their parents, family and friends, and all those affected. We know at least 2 children were seriously injured and taken to hospital by air ambulance. We've had reaction as well from the local MP, the Liberal Democrat MP for Tiverton and Minehead, Rachel Gilmore. She spoke to Sky News a little earlier.
I will be there to support the families, the school, the wonderful headmistress at Minehead Middle School and the wonderful teachers there, and the wonderful children there. When I went there 2 months ago, it was just joyous, and I'm so sad. I'm a new MP. I've never had to deal with this before, and I'm actually really surprised by how much it hurts.
I mean, you can hear in her voice how difficult this will be, of course, for all of the people locally. The parents this afternoon were told to go to the school and wait. Those children and staff and passengers on the coach were taken to, we understand, a nearby pub that was being used as a rest centre, and then they were being taken back to the school. You can't imagine the agonising wait for those parents. Some 60 to 70 people were on that coach. It was a full coach returning from a school trip, as you say, just days before the school holidays were due to begin at that school next Wednesday. Remarkable bit of detail as well to end on this evening from the fire and rescue service that an off-duty firefighter was following the coach at the time of the crash and got out and started work to free those children from the coach. Clearly, that work by that off-duty firefighter would have gone some way to preventing perhaps more serious injuries and deaths. But tonight, absolute heartbreak, a tragic day as it's been described by police, the death of one child.
Indeed so. Dan, updating us there. Thank you. Now, the scandal over the Afghan data leak deepened further today when it emerged that MI6 spies and UK Special Forces operators were among those whose details were exposed. The breach at the Ministry of Defence also led to a secret relocation programme for thousands of Afghans at risk of harm at the cost of millions of pounds. Well, the whole affair kept under wraps by a court order until Tuesday. Now the government is facing calls for an inquiry. Our political correspondent Liz Bates has more.
I think it's a procession of the Taliban. Yes, it is. There's the white flag.
The Taliban's lightning takeover of Afghanistan caught the world by surprise. Thousands of Afghans clamoured to get out, and a relocation scheme was set up to support those who had helped British troops. This week it was revealed the personal details of thousands of those people on the programme were included in a data breach, an issue originally withheld from the public by a court order. And now concerns around that crisis have deepened, as it emerged that more than 100 Britons with senior ranks and roles in the military were also named in the data leak. They include Special Forces troops, MI6 spies and military officers.
This is just further evidence of how serious this incident was and why we've had to take the steps over many months that we've had to take since the Secretary of State has asked for a review with a view to lifting the injunction to make sure that it was perfectly safe for him to get to that point.
Now the Liberal Democrats have called for an inquiry to ensure that lessons are learned.
This is incredibly concerning, and particularly because this data leak actually happened in 2022, so we don't know exactly where it's got to, who might have these details. We'll be looking for an inquiry into all elements of what has happened here, so basically both the data leak and the injunction into this, and also to provide recommendations as to what the MOD needs to do moving forwards to make sure that incidents like this simply don't happen again.
But former SAS soldiers are concerned now for those potentially still operating in Afghanistan.
The latest revelation about Special Forces operatives and MI6 people being revealed, I think the really important thing is that whether there's anybody still in Afghanistan, I'm sure there won't be, who is a spy of any description, that would be terrifyingly worrying.
The Ministry of Defence said, "We take the security of our personnel very seriously, and personnel, particularly those in sensitive positions, always have appropriate measures in place to protect their security." The Defence Secretary not responsible for this, but still in the spotlight as the more disturbing details emerge and pressure for an inquiry builds. Liz Bates, Sky News, Westminster.
16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in a general election for the first time in what the government says is the biggest shake-up of the voting system since 1969. Ministers say they want to lower the voting age from 18 to 16 in time for the next general election. Our People in Politics correspondent Nick Martin reports.
The decision to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to have their say in elections prompted quite a debate among these politics students at a school in North London.
I think as a concept, it's quite a positive thing because it does increase representation for younger voters. I talked to some of my classmates and they are not politically involving themselves and they don't have any political intelligence on purpose and that's worrying.
I think it's about time. The voting age in Scotland is 16 to 17 and the voter turnout and how it's worked out there has only been improving ever since they introduced it.
I feel like it was correct having it at 18 because that's when you turn and become an adult.
It's really good for us to be able to have a say in policies and laws that ultimately affect our lives.
And traditionally, you see younger voters, 18 to 24, mainly voting for more left-wing parties like Labour. But the rise of reform and its use of social media definitely could be helped by this 16, 17-year-old cohort.
It is a major piece of electoral reform, but not a surprising one. It was, after all, a Labour manifesto promised before the last election, that could change the shape of the next one.
If at the age of 16 you can work, pay taxes, join the army, there's no reason why young people should not have the right to participate in our democracy, choose who their representatives are, and shape the future of our country through the democratic process.
It's more than half a century since the last time the voting age was lowered. Labour PM Harold Wilson thought that reducing the voting age to 18 would help the party. Labour was, he said, the party of youth. And if the youth vote was significant then, it didn't quite work out for Labour, as a year later the Conservatives won the 1970 general election. The government have described this as the biggest change to democracy in a generation. But all political parties now will be vying for the votes of 16 and 17-year-olds as a new battleground has opened up. But the truth is, some political parties are off to a head start. Reform, led by Nigel Farage, have 6 times as many followers on TikTok than Labour does, and potentially they have the power to tap in to a new generation of voters.
If you look back at last year's general election, we've had a go at trying to project how it would have shifted the vote shares based on how we know young people generally vote. And what we find is that we're talking about movements in decimal points here. We're not talking about radical change. The Tories would be down a little bit. Labour and the Greens would have been up a little bit. But in an era of multi-party politics, where seats are won on very small shares of the vote, those small movements can have an outsized impact.
It's thought the change to the voting age could inject another 10 million voters into the system. Winning them over could be the key to power. Nick Martin, Sky News.
Well, the MP Diane Abbott has been suspended from the Labour Party after she repeated comments about racism for which she had previously apologised. Her suspension came a day after the Prime Minister suspended 4 other Labour MPs for voting against the government's welfare plans. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, asked Sir Keir Starmer if he was rattled by dissent within Labour.
In 1997, when 47 MPs voted against Tony Blair's welfare plans, not a single one had the whip removed. He, like you, had a massive majority, but unlike you, he just didn't feel the need to punish MPs. Why are you so rattled by this?
We were elected in to change this country for the better. And that means we've got to carry through that change, and we've got to carry through reforms, because we inherited a broken economy and broken public services. No government has inherited both of those ever before, and I'm determined that we will change this country for the better for millions of working people. And I'm not going to be deflected from that. Therefore, we had to deal with people who repeatedly break the whip, because everyone was elected as a Labour MP on the manifesto of change, and everybody needs to deliver as a Labour government. This is about what we're doing for the country, and that's why I'm so determined to press forward with the reforms and the change that we need to bring about.
Well, let's go live to Downing Street and our chief political correspondent, John Craig. So the PM unrepentant there, and another suspension today then, John?
Well, shortly after the Prime Minister was speaking alongside the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at Airbus factory in Stevenage in Hertfordshire, we learned that Diane Abbott has been suspended by the Labour Party, not for voting against the government, but a reopening of the row over comments she made about racism and anti-Semitism back in 2023. Then she wrote a letter to the Observer saying you couldn't really compare racism against black people with that against other groups, including such as Jewish people. Well, she was suspended then. She eventually got the whip back just before the election so she could stand again. But now she has given an interview to the BBC in which she says she doesn't regret those remarks. She was asked, do you look back on that incident with regret? No, not at all, she said. So, on top of the 4 suspensions we had yesterday, Neil Duncan Jordan, Brian Leishman, Chris Hinchliffe and Rachel Maskell, 3 of those new MPs. We've now got the veteran Diane Abbott, elected in '87, mother of the House, trailblazer, one of the first black MPs suspended. Will she join Jeremy Corbyn's party if he launches one? Well, the other independents in Parliament are trying to welcome her with open arms, but we'll see what she decides to do. But she's in deep trouble again now, and we know there's no love lost between the Prime Minister and Diane Abbott, so could be the beginning of the end for her, possibly, as a Labour MP.
Yes, interesting, John. But meantime, the PM, as you said, appearing alongside the German Chancellor, who had strong opinions on Brexit.
Well, they signed this. This is the Kensington Treaty, signed at the V&A Museum in Kensington earlier today. There's a lot of goodies in it. For example, the Germans are going to legislate to stop people in Germany harbouring small boats or other equipment to smuggle illegal immigrants across the Channel. E-gates for frequent travellers in Germany, later on for all travellers, and more defence cooperation, and Ukraine for support for Ukraine, a UK-German rail link even, exchange deals, school visits and so on. But amongst all the bonhomie and all the warm words came this from the German Chancellor talking about Brexit.
Großbritannien hat
The United Kingdom, and I personally deplore this deeply, decided to leave the European Union. Russia is shaking the European security architecture, and the transatlantic ties are undergoing a far-reaching transformation which we've not seen for a very long time. It is under these new conditions that it is our aim to secure freedom, security and the prosperity of the people of both of our countries.
So the German Chancellor becomes the second major European leader to denounce Brexit in a week. Last week it was President Macron here in the UK as well. Well, clearly, nearly 10 years after the Brexit referendum and Britain voting to leave the European Union, in Europe the wounds have not healed.
John, live there in Downing Street, thank you. Pope Leo has expressed his deep sadness and called for an immediate ceasefire after 3 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike which hit the only Catholic church in Gaza. Israel says it deeply regrets the incident at the Holy Family Church, which it claims was caused by stray ammunition. Here's Lisa Holland reporting from Jerusalem.
The cross of the Holy Family Catholic Church in northern Gaza is still standing. But from this angle, with the cross on the left of the picture, you can see the devastation caused to the rest of the building by what has been described as a direct hit. Dazed survivors from Gaza's only Catholic church were treated at a nearby hospital. The church had reportedly been sheltering Christians and Muslims as Israel's war with Gaza rages on.
The church was struck and innocent people, elderly and children, were inside. My mother sustained a shrapnel wound to her head. We just want peace.
This photograph shows the parish priest, Father Gabriel Romanelli, originally from Argentina, being treated for a leg wound. Catholics around the world became familiar with the Gazan church because of its close relationship with the late Pope Francis. A pontiff who spoke out on global issues, he faithfully checked in on the welfare of the priest and his community every night at 7 p.m. The church was one of the oldest buildings in Gaza, and in spite of the war managed to continue its mission. This was a special mass when Pope Francis passed away. In a statement, the Vatican said, His Holiness Pope Leo XIV was deeply saddened to learn of the loss of life and injury caused by the military attack on the Holy Family Catholic Church in Gaza. His Holiness renews his call for an immediate ceasefire, and he expresses his profound hope for dialogue, reconciliation and enduring peace in the region. Around the world, Catholics have expressed their distress over the attack on the church and the continuing loss of life.
The reality is that those places, churches, mosques, hospitals, schools, should never be targets. And that's against humanitarian law, but it's also against any sense of natural justice.
The area where the church is, near Gaza City, has seen some of the worst destruction since the conflict began. And in recent days, Israeli attacks have been particularly intense. Israel says it deeply regrets that the church was hit by what it says was a stray munition. It says the incident is being investigated and that Israel remains committed to protecting civilians and holy sites. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Jerusalem.
19 more alleged abuse victims have come forward following a Sky News investigation into a now closed children's home in Norfolk. Earlier this year, we brought you the story of the establishment called the Red House that's been described as a cult and stands accused of allowing countless cases of physical and sexual harm against the young people it was meant to protect. A warning: this report from our correspondent, Alice Porter, contains references to suicide and themes that you may find distressing.
It was like hell on earth. You wondered what was going to happen to you next.
At 15, Colin, not his real name, was placed at the Red House. The reality of his new home soon set in.
They put these three lads in my room. They squeezed me round my neck and literally I passed out. And when I came round, they were sexually abusing me, three of them. I was screaming and screaming. Next day I ran and I never went back there.
The children's home was based on this site in Norfolk, but teenagers were sent there from all over the country. It was run by a Danish group called Tvin, which has been described as a cult. Since we first reported on the Red House scandal in March, 19 more alleged victims have come forward. The total number is now 62. Sky News has obtained an inspection report from Norfolk County Council in 1994, which shows they were aware of suspected sexual abuse and physical abuse. The total number of children involved was 20, yet the home stayed open. And 3 years after that report, Norfolk sent a teenage boy to the home knowing there were multiple abuse allegations. His testimony is portrayed by an actor.
It seemed that the Red House was their black hole where they could just dump people and not worry about them. I can't even think of an instance when the social worker turned up to even check on me. The members of staff, they were very heavy-handed. If they had to restrain somebody, they did it very forcefully. It was very cultish as well.
Those still working for Tvin in Denmark say they are not associated with the former Tvin corporation. Norfolk County Council say, we continue to investigate and respond to those private claims through the appropriate legal channels. Our thoughts are with all survivors of abuse, but as there is an ongoing legal claim relating to Red House, we cannot comment further at this time. The home was shut down in 1998. No one has been charged. Now, the victim's lawyer is trying to sue local authorities which sent children to the home and Norfolk County Council.
We urge Norfolk Council, who we say at the centre of this, in whose geographic area Red House was based, to tell the truth. They were aware from very early on that central government were concerned about the abuse and allegations of abuse, and they failed to act.
2 of Colin's friends from the Red House took their own lives. He says he's speaking up for them, hoping that, finally, there may be accountability. Alice Porter, Sky News.
And if you've been affected by this story, then you can contact the Samaritans at any time on 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org. Now, 2 black men who were framed by a corrupt police officer in the 1970s have had their convictions overturned. The Court of Appeal ruled that Ronald D'Souza, one of the so-called Stockwell Six, had not been a robber. It also decided that Errol Campbell, whose son was at court today, was innocent of stealing and theft. Both men had gone to prison after being set up by British Transport Police officer Sergeant Derek Ridgewell.
My dad always said he was innocent, and today that's finally been confirmed almost 50 years later. I'm angry that Ridgewell is not alive for this day and that he never went to prison for all the people he fitted up. He never answered for his crimes.
Felix Baumgartner has died at the age of 56 after crashing into a pool in a paragliding accident. The Austrian skydiver became a household name when he jumped to Earth from a helium balloon in 2012. The American rapper Snoop Dogg has become the latest celebrity to buy into a British sports team. He's been unveiled as an investor and co-owner of Swansea City, who will play in the Championship next season. There, they'll face fellow Welsh side AFC Wrexham, who have risen from non-league competition to worldwide acclaim under the ownership of Hollywood actors Ron McKelney and Ryan Reynolds. Now, it's the company that helped make Elon Musk a household name, but now Sky News Analysis has revealed the scale of the crisis facing his electric vehicle empire, Tesla. Following his blockbuster fallout with Donald Trump and the president's decision to cut subsidies to his old friend's firm, the car maker's future is under severe strain. Our business and economics correspondent, Paul Kelso, has this report.
Come here. Take over, Eli, just take over.
It's the bromance that drove Donald Trump to the presidency. Elon Musk's millions that helped him get elected repaid with a job cutting billions from federal budgets and turning the White House into a Tesla showroom. But the love-in has hit the brakes after the president cut subsidies worth billions of dollars every year to Tesla, raising questions about its viability.
Tesla's incredible journey from start-up to the world's biggest EV manufacturer was helped enormously by government subsidies that are now being cut. Sky News Analysis has found that last year the company banked $2.8 billion. That's equivalent to 38% of its profit from state-level subsidies Donald Trump has just cut. Also gone at the stroke of the president's pen, a $7,500 tax credit to anyone who wants to buy any EV.
That makes every one of these Teslas more than 15% more expensive for American consumers.
Taking the subsidies away, Tesla has, over its lifetime, burnt cash. In fact, excluding the subsidies it got last quarter, they would have lost money. So the subsidies have been critical, not only to the earnings they report, but to their ability to sustain as a going entity.
Without the subsidies, we might say Tesla was in the red.
Without the subsidies, Tesla's business is losing money.
Goodwood's Festival of Speed celebrates the petrol-driven world that Elon Musk took on, building a market as well as a company, making electric cars not just virtuous, but desirable. Having put 7 million of them on the road, Tesla now faces its greatest challenge.
Subsidies aren't Elon Musk's only problem. Tesla is facing enormous competition from Chinese EVs and established European manufacturers finally catching up. And sales are falling around the world. And some of that may be down to Musk himself. The man who was Tesla's greatest asset is, for some, becoming a liability.
Musk needs to focus on Tesla. The political antics, the brand damage in the US, especially in Europe, the increasing competition in China, the tax subsidies. Look, it's a moment of truth time for Tesla to get through this period, but I believe brighter days are ahead.
As time goes on, and especially as the subsidies are disappearing this quarter, I mean, it didn't even make it to the end of the year. This is going to affect Tesla sales this year. Basically, nobody wants to buy Teslas anymore, and most people driving them are just driving them because they already have one and they can't sell it.
Among the petrol heads and potential Tesla owners at Goodwood's Festival of Speed, Musk remains divisive.
What do you think about the boss of Tesla?
Can't put that on camera, can we?
Really?
No, I don't think he's a good guy.
Do you think he might be putting people off?
Yeah, with what he's been saying in the press and so forth, yeah.
Our daughter desperately wants a Tesla, so yeah.
There's always somebody in this world that's done something wrong with some products, but it doesn't stop us buying it.
Elon Musk has described Donald Trump's cuts as disgusting and very unfair. The president says more could follow. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we will take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined, as you can see, by the political commentator Tim Montgomery and the journalist and author Rachel Shelby. Welcome to both of you. Lovely to see you. So, among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front page of The Guardian. Diane Abbott suspended by Labour for a second time. That and plenty more when we come back.